Just tile cat out all the time?
Yeah.
Whether she's wearing a shirt or not.
When she stands up, so the whole thing just goes to tiles.
I think I need some glass blocks.
Anyway, hey, welcome back to another episode of 1980s Now, a weekly examination of the importance of 1980s pop culture and its influence today. Hey, my name is Will, and joining me, as always, back again, the team here, my friends, Kat and John. Hey, guys.
Hi, guys.
Hello. Good to have you back, Kat.
Yeah.
I missed you.
Thank you so much. I missed you guys too, of course, although I'm thinking, maybe every other month or so, I might just not show up. Because it's really funny to hear what you guys come up with when I'm not here. And also,
a little extra stress on us. Thank you.
Yes, a little stress. I feel so loved and appreciated when I'm listening to you too. Yes, when I'm not. Oh, yes.
Oh, yep, we agree. Kat, you're just going to leave us way too much time to build a really sophisticated board of sounds that you make and things you might say.
Some might argue that's mostly what I do, but
yeah, but the thing is that we will like if you do this certainly every month, 3 or 4 months in, we're going to make you say stuff you wouldn't normally say. And it's going to become this cat that doesn't really exist.
Oh, forget it then. No, I need to stay and monitor.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking too. Mm-hmm.
You just build a full AI cat by taking, hours and hours of voice samples and yeah, sure. We'll Randy Travis you.
It's coming. Maybe we'll just get Randy Travis. Hey, and also hello everybody to all you folks out there in the live watching us on Facebook or YouTube. I'll say hello to the folks at least we can see. If you're out there, you got to say hello. Otherwise, we don't know you exist. Certainly not at least
Hi, folks.
At this moment. I see Miss So and Al and Darth. I feel like was it the Magic Garden? Did you guys have that where you lived?
Oh,
they called
yes.
out. Yeah, Kat did, of course.
I loved it.
What?
Karen and Nathan and Brandon.
Magic Garden.
It was a kid's show at the end where she would say that the couple, these two ladies, would say goodbye or hello. They'd look through a magic mirror or whatever it was.
Yeah.
And they could see who's watching. Hi. And you're waiting for your own name to be read because you're, oh my God, they said Billy. They could see me. Son of a bitch. You're right, Dad. They are monitoring us.
Unless you have a really obscure name and they never say, it's like the cups at the gift shop or the magnets.
Oh, and
you're looking for your name.
Yes.
Yeah.
The stickers.
So I can always find John, but never Jon. I was always left out.
I could always find Kathy, which I was called Kathy, but I never really was a Kathy. That just sort of happened.
Oh, then there's Will.
Really.
He got everything he wanted at the gift shop.
It's usually just William. So even still. Yeah.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I take it back.
Yeah. Oh, Karen says Romper Room. Was it Romper Room or Magic Garden? Maybe I'm getting it wrong.
Oh, my. Oh, is this a Mandela effect?
Oh, yeah. It was the woman at the end of... crap. I don't know. Who cares? Whatever. Hey, on today's show, speaking about crap that nobody cares about, we're going to be talking about a number of... John always is mystified when I will dare to say something negative about our own show. As if it influences
don't we have
anybody.
the same goals?
Yes, we do, but just nobody really listens to me in that regard. Of course, I love our show and I love hanging out with you guys. All right, hey, on today's speaking of things I love to talk about with my friends.
See?
That wasn't the segue. On today's
We're editing
show,
that one out.
on today's show, we'll review current news stories related to 1980s media, including the 1980s Easter eggs in Deadpool and Wolverine. They're all related to one particular 1980s film that's we're fans of. Speaking of Deadpool, the 1989's Like a Prayer gets a remake in connection with the film. There's 2 new 80s style arcade games based on horror movies that we enjoy coming out. Speaking of new stuff from old things, there's a new animated Ghostbusters series. And as a result of that, I learned about the Extreme Ghostbusters, which I missed in the 90s, and maybe I'm going to go back and check it out.
Right?
And then finally, we're going to catch up on what happened in connection with breaking at the Olympics, because I hear it was terribly boring.
No, it wasn't.
No, it went. Yes, there was one particular performance that went viral.
Yes.
Not in the way that you'd hope for something to go viral.
Right. Not like an infection either.
I mean, can I just look
a little like an infection, maybe? Yeah.
Yes. Hey, all right. Hey, let's get caught up on 1980s news. But actually talking about legitimate things, this week in 1980s news, Deadpool and Wolverine that we talked about, John and I talked about a little bit last week, it's now earned over $1 billion globally, unseating Joker as the highest rated R movie in film history.
Yeah, with big help from Will.
Yes. It's so rewatchable, Kat, if you like those movies. If you don't like it, it's going to be terrible. Yeah.
I do.
Yeah.
I cannot wait to see it, except I haven't been able to see it.
Well, apparently you can wait to see it because you haven't seen it.
Right.
It's complicated.
How many times now, Will?
Three
times
now?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. 3. Only 2 for me is all.
Only 2 for John.
Well, I didn't expect the third, except I was, visiting my daughter in California, and she's a huge fan. And so we just happened to be near a movie theater. We were at the Universal Studios Hollywood, the City Walk area, and we're having a donut where the AMC is like 50 feet from us. And she says, wouldn't it be great if we could just see that movie? And I was like,
we totally could.
Let's see what time it's coming on. It was coming on in 10 minutes on the IMAX.
Oh,
so we did that. So yeah, that was a surprising third time.
There you go.
But just as fun, and even more fun when you see somebody who's really as into it as you are.
Yeah.
Anyway, one of the things that John and I talked about, and certainly no secret, is that it's chock full of cameos. Well, it's also got tons of Easter eggs, but a couple of the more obscure references and the relationship of two main characters that are played by Ryan Reynolds and Hugh Jackman, the titular Deadpool and Wolverine, are actually an homage to a 1980s movie.
Very cool.
A native Canadian, Reynolds grew up watching a fellow Canuck, John Candy. Candy first found fame in his native home there on SCTV. It was a sketch comedy TV show that started in Canada and there in Toronto. And then eventually we started getting it here in the U.S. as sort of a somewhat competitor of Saturday Night Live. Certainly you could enjoy both. But of course, Candy later became a staple of 1980s movies, including appearances in Splash and Stripes and Summer Rental and Spaceballs and probably another movie that began with S. But it was John Candy's turn in 1987's Planes, Trains, and Automobiles that may have had the greatest influence on the Deadpool actor and writer. As Reynolds not only appears in the film, stars in it, he's also a producer, and he also is credited among many people as having contributed to the script. It's like 7 people in the credits for having written this thing.
Oh, wow.
Well, there's plenty of dialogue to have gone around.
Yes.
For people who've contributed, yeah.
And it seems like there's so many movies prior to Deadpool. Well, Reynolds is already doing this character, right? It's just kind of one that he has in his pocket, sort of.
Yeah.
This fast-talking, wisecracking sort of guy. Anyway, while promoting the film, Reynolds sat down with Turner Classic Movies Ben Mankiewicz to talk about the 1987 film. So while promoting Deadpool and Wolverine, he started talking about Planes, Trains, and Automobile, which paired Candy with Steve Martin. Now, their characters in that film that everybody, I'm sure, even if I'm sure you're familiar with it, at least in this regard, right? It's essentially a road film that pits these two sort of opposite characters together. The short-tempered Neil, played by Steve Martin, and the incessant conversationalist, I'll say, Dell, played by John Candy, as they make
Can't shut up.
Nope.
And Candy's character, look, he talks, he uses humor to try to make the best of a terrible situation as they try to journey, back home to the Midwest from New York. And Martin is just, a curmudgeon the whole time.
Yes.
In the simultaneously heartwarming and heartbreaking climax of the film, we actually learn the reason why Candy comes on as strong as he does, as clingy, his reliance on humor and dialogue, conversation to sort of lighten the mood, it's because he had some personal trauma that, he's able to sort of exercise in this way.
You cry, remembering it.
Yeah. Well, if I describe just, if you think about it sort of on a high level, that's not unlike the Deadpool character himself. He's had personal trauma, talks a whole lot, and uses humor to try to, avoid anything serious. Well, when talking about his film and Planes, Trains, and Automobiles, Reynolds confessed that there's a nod to Candy in every single Deadpool film.
That's so cool.
Yeah. And while some of them are visual references, the 1989 film also influenced the writing of the new blockbuster. Reynolds explains that if Deadpool is the John Candy character, quote, it would be Hugh, that would be the Steve Martin character, end quote.
Yeah.
And as soon as I read that, a light goes off, right? I mean, because it's not only is it a road movie, because it is. A good portion of this is essentially like a road movie, which without spoilers. But it also, their relationship is very much like Del and Neil. And it didn't occur to me again until I read this, that there is one scene where Wolverine chastises Deadpool in the same way that Martin chides Candy in the scene in the hotel room.
Right. It's like a moment where he snaps and he just goes off and tells him everything he doesn't like about him. Mm-hmm. Just like Steve Martin's character did. Yeah. And it wasn't until I saw this article and he drew the parallel. I'm like, oh yeah, I can see the mapping of the two characters, which not that Planes, Trains, and Automobiles invented the pairing of characters, but they certainly made it most memorable and for me. Yeah. And I'm like, that maps perfectly. But like you, I had not thought of that scene in the car, the unloading of all the baggage and just the frustration. I'm like, that's like spot on.
And it's not something you knew about ahead of time. It wasn't over.
No.
Well, I'm glad I know, so then I'll be looking for it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, you won't miss it. You can't miss it now. You'll definitely, you'll scream at you.
Yeah. And what's great is now knowing that and having seen the film three times, there's a pause before Deadpool responds. And if you remember, John Candy gives this wonderful monologue about how his relationship with his wife and how she appreciates who he is. And ultimately he likes himself. So he doesn't care what Steve Martin thinks. Well, in Deadpool, there's that similar pause and Deadpool even looks maybe kind of despondent. And then he punches Wolverine and an amazing fight scene ensues.
Oh, man.
I think he says, now we're going to fight. I think it's how they get set up, right?
I'm going to fight you now. He's like, what? And then now another Easter egg in the Deadpool Wolverine film connected to John Candy and Planes, Trains, and Automobiles comes straight from that monologue. Because as I just mentioned, Candy delivers the line, "I like me." And that is seen on a mug that is shown. I think it might have been the first image in the whole movie. Another Easter egg includes the Canadian Mounted, which is a novel that John Candy's seen reading in Planes, Trains, and Automobiles. And this one is one that we could be certain appears in more than one Deadpool movie, including the most recent, because we've seen it. And Ryan Reynolds says he just gives the studio $5,000 every time they start a new Deadpool and says, pay them for the licensing of the cover. I'm going to stick the book in there somewhere.
Oh my god!
To pay for the license of a cover of a book?
Yeah.
What if you're in the library? What kind of budget do you have to film the library?
You got to put that in soft focus in the background.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Blur.
That's right.
And the most, I guess, sort of blink it and you miss it. You got to be a real fan deep cut. And not necessarily a deep cut for the film, maybe a deep cut for Deadpool and Wolverine, because you really got to pay attention, is the one scene here, which appears in the film while, again, this is a road movie, that they're traveling from one point to another.
Oh, the car is all burned out.
Yep. It's the car that Del and Neil rent. The 1986 Chrysler LeBaron Town and Country. And
it's the same style, the same model and every. Oh,
and sitting in front of it is Del's trunk.
Oh, yeah, I definitely missed that. Yeah. There's so much going on in those scenes to try to figure out what's that. I missed that entirely. That's cool.
Yeah, and that one,
gosh.
Again, seeing it a third time and knowing now what to look for, I saw it, and then I turned to tell my daughter, okay, I'm going to tell her, is it going to come back? Oh, they're not going to show it again. And I just relaxed. And then, boom, they showed it. No, wait. And then it was off again. Brandon says, there are so many 1980s Easter eggs in the Deadpool franchise that it's impossible to catch them all. Yeah. But I think Reynolds was born in 1976, I think, or 77, 76. So, yeah, he was an 80s kid. He's a Gen Xer. So it makes sense that he would put stuff from the 80s and certainly in the 90s in these films.
Yeah.
All right. Hey, elsewhere, per Billboard, another 1980s news, Marvel, and this is, again, talking about Deadpool and Wolverine, Marvel releases a Battle Royale and choir version of Like a Prayer. If you've seen the trailer for the film, you've seen that you know that 1989 song is featured quite heavily in the trailer. And it's also featured prominently in the movie as well. The studio has now released two versions of the track over this weekend, both of which are featured in the film. The Like a Prayer EP features the original version as well as the film composer Rob Simonson mixing the joyous song with even more choir voices, a stirring organ line and dramatic strings. The choir version features the I'll Take You There choir and leans even further into the spiritual side, focusing on the uplifting gospel vocalists. Now, I got to tell you, this whole scene, John will know what I'm talking about. When the choir version kicks in, the moment that happens is just so heartwarming to me.
Oh.
maybe, and I'm trying to think about it, likening it to talking about Planes, Trains.
Okay.
You know, when they come together, when Steve Martin realizes what Dell is about, and he goes back and gets him and he takes him back home. Oh, I'm just so overwhelmed with emotion every time I watch it. Never, you know.
Yeah.
It's a similar kind of emotional experience, I think.
And it comes right on the heel of effectively Hugh Jackman, give anything away, acknowledging and showing appreciation for the history of the role almost, you know?
Right.
He kind of, it's almost like the character comes to terms as the actor would with his appreciation for having been Wolverine all this time, being an X-Man, you know? It's
right.
So you have that already if you're a comic fan. And then they pile on this choir with, it's like, wow, it's emotionally powerful. Yeah. And it's a fun scene.
Okay.
I wondered if the second time I saw it, whether or not it would be as impactful.
Yeah.
And it was. It still was.
I can see it last 3 times, John. At least 3 times.
Keeps its impact the third time too. You can verify. Okay.
So I'm really curious to see it now because I was imagining that this was one of those, and I love this, when there's a juxtaposition of a song in the background with the action that's happening. I love when there's a mismatch. And for some reason in my head, I had decided that's probably what was going on with this song, but maybe not.
In that case, no, but maybe the other time a little.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. The other mix possibly. Yeah.
Well,
Again,
and there's
staying vague.
And there's 2 big fight
That's
scenes
good.
in the
Thank
film
you.
that do that as well, Kat.
Yeah.
Okay.
And they're both fantastic. And
I love when that happens.
Yeah.
I love when there's that juxtaposition. Love it.
oh, yes. I think it's worth seeing just even for the opening. It's just so, I don't know.
Juxtaposition.
Hey, John, you can start a whole thing on that. Catchphrase.
On board.
Like fire and water, juxtaposition, end of reel.
There we go.
Well, it turns out if you think, just do this as an exercise, right? Just a mental exercise. When's the last time you heard a Madonna song in a movie? Huh.
Oh.
I don't know that I can. That's not a Madonna movie, I should say.
That's not a Madonna movie.
Right. Well, we talked about the one where it was, what was the one that was,
No, that was Cyndi
was it
Lauper.
like a Virgin movie? No,
it
was
was Cyndi Lauper with Girls Just Want to Have Fun.
Oh, it was Cyndi Lauper. That's right. But it wasn't
yeah.
her. That's right. Yeah, it was Cyndi Lauper.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, it turns out that
The other 80s diva.
she's not so quick to license her music for films. Okay. And last month, director Sean Levy described the process of securing the rights to license this song for Deadpool and Wolverine, which included a personal plea to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame legend. According to Reynolds, it involved a personal visit to Madonna. Quote, Madonna doesn't just license the song, particularly that song. It was a big deal to ask for it and certainly a bigger deal to use it. We went over and met with her and sort of showed her how it was being used and where and why, end quote. And Madonna, being Madonna star, Reynolds said that the singer had some thoughts on how they should use it. Quote, she gave a great note. She watched it, and I'm not kidding. She said, you need to do this. And damn it, if she wasn't like spot on, we literally went into a new recording session within 48 hours to do this note. It made the sequence better, end quote.
I guess she knows her library. She knows her catalog and the tone of the song. So
yeah,
I'd be curious to know exactly what that is, but
Yeah. I want to know. What was it?
Yeah, what was the note?
Yeah. Maybe we'll find out. It is a fantastic rendition and goes so well with the
more cowbell.
Well, you know when they said you added even more choir voices. That was the equivalent to me. It was like more cowbell. Yeah, I need another tenor. God damn it! We're running out of vocalists in the LA area.
We're just gonna have to do. Everybody record 2 tracks. We're gonna layer them.
The use of the song in the Summer's Biggest Movie helped Like a Prayer make its debut on the global charts last week when it reached number 181 on the Billboard Global 200. The song topped the Billboard Hot 100 for 3 weeks back in 1989 and, of course, sparked controversy with its music video, to which I see Karen writes, makes me want a Pepsi.
Yes.
Of course, we talked about how they just aired her Pepsi commercial after it was canceled, whatever that was, 30 years ago.
Brandon adds in Gummo in 1997. Is that a movie? Like a Prayer was in that film, but I can promise you don't want to see it.
Yeah, right, sure.
Okay.
I don't know
now
Gummo.
I'm curious.
I'll take his word for it, though.
I'll
So,
go with that.
And 97, how long, what was that, 27 years ago? Kimberly says, I think her note was probably about when the music cut out of the scene, but then comes back in. I wonder.
Oh.
Do you have any information on that? That is really cool because we talked about this, Kat. When music drops out and then comes back in. I really dig that.
Well, it almost reminds you the music is there when it drops out, right?
Yes.
You get used to it. When it drops out, you're like, I notice its absence. And it comes back in, it's even more impactful than if it had just continued. Yeah.
I am so excited to see this movie because I have all this stuff that I'm ready.
There's
so much to see.
We've built it up so much. There's no chance she's going to like it. It reminds you, when I did some shows at Juilliard years ago, writing music and doing sound design, there was a show I did where it had a lot, I think this is how it went. Yeah, there was a lot of music that I wrote and it was scored, And so then one of the other directors asked me to do their piece. And when I saw it, I was like, they wanted the whole thing scored from beginning to end. And I thought it was very dramatic. It's going to make it like a soap opera and seem sappy. If you're playing strings underneath these monologues and stuff, it's going to seem terrible, and there's a word for it that's escaping me, but it's, So what I said to him was, let's have silence, never any music. But what we'll do is during the scene changes, I will make it very loud and cacophonous with all these drums so that when we take it out, you notice that there's nothing there anymore.
Yeah.
So I think you're right about noticing.
That's like what John was saying. Yeah, you really notice.
It accentuates that.
Yeah.
Hey, in other 1980s news, enough about me just finding ways to crowbar in experiences I'll never get to tell anybody else about.
Oh.
There's no reason they would otherwise come up.
I love hearing them.
As reported by Joe Blow, Halloween and Ash vs. Evil Dead video games are coming in October. So very soon here.
Wow. So exciting. This bit of news.
In other news.
There you go. So a press release has revealed that on October 18th, Boss Team Games and Way Forward Technologies, in association with Compass International Pictures, Forward Front, Lionsgate, and Stars.
And others.
Walmart, ShopRite.
Walgreens.
What else? What else can we put in there?
Rite Aid.
Home Depot and Rite Aid. Your local
Wherever fine
library.
Chia Pets are sold.
The AEW. We'll be releasing a pair of 80s arcade style games based on both the 1978 film Halloween and the more recent TV series Ash vs. Evil Dead. And we got the trailer here that we'll share with you.
Oh, that was a whole lot of blood.
And bonus characters.
Yeah, what folks didn't get to see is what we're taking a look at here is looking like at late 80s or mid 80s, even early 90s, certainly 16-bit side scrollers, akin to like what Ghosts and Goblins, maybe RoboCop.
Yeah. From what I saw, it had some beat 'em up and brawler aspects, some light platforming maybe in there. And maybe it's the bloodiness reminds me of Splatterhouse initially because of all the because of all the splatting blood and the little monsters that are everywhere, especially in the Halloween one more so.
Right.
Yeah, it looks, but it's that throwback kind of modern retro aesthetic. Right.
Yeah. Look, they're making it look retro certainly, but imagine they're taking advantage of technology that we wouldn't be able to create, or images that we wouldn't be able to create had the, back then, with even with the 16-bit and the, what was that? The 68,000, shoot, I can't remember.
68,000 microprocessor?
Yeah, yes. The microprocessor, right. 68,000. Anyway, yeah, and you get in one version, one of the games, you play as Michael Myers. You're cutting your way through, I don't know, maybe innocent victims, in different houses and that sort of thing. And the other one, you're Ash fighting against various deadites, it looks like. And again, it's a side scroller, so you see different locations, etc. According to this description, it combines retro visuals with modern mechanics. Players venture between two overlapping worlds, and this is where it gets interesting. With the ability to enter the nightmare-infested dark realm at any time. They don't tell us what that is, but that unlocks shortcuts, hidden pathways, and rewards for those brave enough to enter. Now, what's really cool about this is, in addition to just, I think they look great because they're retro, and so it gives us that sort of feel, those cool vibes that we associate with those games. Already, I imagine myself in an arcade or at a friend's house in a living room, sitting in front of a NES or something that could handle, what was it? I don't know what could handle 16-bit back then. Sega. Turbo Graphics. What was the first one, John? I don't know. 5200? That's probably still, I don't know.
Yeah. Probably Turbo Graphics 16, I think, was the first to tout that, I think, although few people had it. Yeah. And then the SNES had 16-bit. Yeah.
So one of the cool things about, or another cool thing in addition to that sort of vintage feel is that it says even though the Retro Realms titles are sold separately, they connect with each other to create an ever-expanding universe of popular characters that unlock additional gameplay. They can be played individually, sure, but if you've got both titles, new features can be accessed, including taking characters from one game into the other. So maybe you want Michael Myers' help fighting Deadites. I don't want Ash to go up cutting up innocent people, though.
No.
The Dark Realm reminds me of like the Upside Down, the way you describe it, a much more aggressive area to work your way through.
Power Driven says that looks fun, actually. Karen says those looked neat. Darth, they look cool. Brandon says, I'm with John. Halloween looks very Splatterhouse-esque. Looks a lot cooler than the Halloween. I was thinking about this too, Brandon. It looks a lot cooler than the Halloween on Atari I play the hell out of. Yeah, you remember that? That was so lame, that game. But still scary, I think. Jason or Michael Myers hunting you down. And Marcus says, the Intellivision was the first 16-bit game console released in 1979. Marcus, you got to be Googling this week. Come on. You got that off the tip of your noggin?
I think he's full of baloney.
Oh, okay.
We'll challenge him. Television's 8-bit. Pretty sure it was the PC Engine. TurboGrafx 16 was the first 16-bit.
Yeah, we didn't have 16-bit in the arcade till like, I don't know, 83 or something like that, 82. I'm trying to remember which game it was, but yeah, so that would be surprising. Anyway, these games are going to be released simultaneously on a bunch of platforms, including PlayStation, Xbox, Nintendo Switch, and Steam on October 18th. You get one for $25, you get them both. Guess what? They're for $50.
Oh, wow.
So no discount
what a bargain.
there.
Wow.
And if you pre-order it if you saw in the trailer there, if you were watching, you'll get the one additional fan favorite character, either Laurie Strode with Halloween or Kelly Maxwell with Ash versus Evil Dead, which have their own playable content and weapons and story and that sort of thing. Marcus says Atari was 8-bit, and yes, I know how Google works. Yes, yes, and we also know Atari was 8-bit. Right? All right. Hey, another 1980s news as reported by Variety, Netflix greenlights Ghostbusters animated series. So Netflix finally got around to greenlighting a series that was first announced back in 2022. In addition, Variety has learned that Elliot, I don't care about this. It's always interesting, like the trades, like Variety, Deadline. They go into all these people that are producers.
Yeah, what's their motivation? Who are they? Who are they trying to service?
They're making sure these people subscribe.
So when they go ego surfing, they see their name.
Yeah, I mean, look, I'm Joe Blow sitting at home. By the way, Joe Blow's the name of a source that we're going to use later on. But I'm Joe Blow sitting at home watching the Oscars, and pick somebody who wins. I want to thank my agent. So I don't care. You have an audience of one when you say that.
Well, how do you feel when they thank their spouse? Are you mad again?
No, I am not mad at that.
If their agent provided them the same support that they got from their spouse, then it's their platform. It's their 30 seconds or it's their 30 seconds to say whatever they want. So thank whoever you want. Thank the mailman that brought you the letter that said you got the role or whatever.
No. Maybe it's just...
I can't believe you begrudge them for thanking who they want to thank. Really?
Yeah, you're right. I guess I'm being cynical about it, assuming it's just some sort of, ass kissing or quid pro quo.
But I'm with you on the article. Why are you listing all these people?
Yeah. Okay. So back to that. Yes.
And from the grip who brought you. Grip or the craft services provided by.
Anyway, as I mentioned, the show was first reported to be in development back in 2022. Exact plot details are still under wraps, but sources say that the 3D animated series will be tonally in line with the recent Ghostbusters films.
Okay.
And as previously reported, the series hails from Sony Pictures Animation with Jason Reitman and Gil, again, I don't know if it's Kenan or Keenan, of Ghost Corps Inc. On board as executive producers. I suppose that's the most promising thing, is that it does seem like everything is going through this Ghost Corps that they created in connection with the starting back with Afterlife. And they announced at the time, they had this vision for all these different products and properties and that they were going to produce. And so far, I don't know that we've seen them all come to fruition. There were some other, the other things that we had heard about. But the good news is that it seems they're all being controlled essentially by this, creative duo that's overseeing these films.
I'm dubious. Previous iterations of animated Ghostbusters, I have not found to be to my liking.
Okay.
So I'm optimistic when they say it's in the tonality, it's going to match kind of the recent films. But who's the target audience? Like if the target audience
Right.
is adults and longtime Ghostbusters fans, maybe they can do that. But previous animated Ghostbusters have really been aimed at, the Saturday morning kid, after school kind of thing. And so you can't really do those things tonally. So, is it going to be a heavier kind of thing? I mean, not as heavy as Ghostbusters gets, but if it's just slapstick Saturday morning stuff, not interested. So I'm curious to see what they do, but I'm cautious.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I was a semi fan, I think, of the real Ghostbusters, which aired from 86 to 91.
Okay.
I think so. I recall watching it. It wasn't too long after, I guess, the first film came out, within 2 years, and the second film hadn't come out yet. So I feel like it, sort of, I don't know, whetted my appetite for that type of thing. I don't know, satiated.
I remember. Oh, sorry.
Good.
I remember seeing the real Ghostbusters because my brother watched it. It wasn't something that I went out of my way for. It was goofy, fun, goofy.
It was goofy. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, what I didn't know was that it was followed by another series in 1997 called Extreme Ghostbusters, which was, in some TV listings, apparently was alternatively listed as Ghostbusters Dark.
Wait, when was that one released?
97.
What did you say? Okay, good. I was going to say, if it came out in the 90s, of course it was called Extreme.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess so. You're right.
Extreme was the buzzword for all of the 90s. So that makes sense.
That one was a short-lived series that only lasted for 40 episodes in syndication. And actually saw a mostly new, a lineup of new characters that were led by Egon. Janine also returns to her job. So you've got those two original folks. Otherwise, it's new characters. And I think it sounds like an interesting premise. Again, I never watched it. It continues the story several years after the real Ghostbusters, so it's part of that continuity. But there's been a lack of supernatural activity, so the Ghostbusters have, they've just gone out of business and gone off to do other things. Except Egon, who still lives in the firehouse, monitors the containment unit, takes care of Slimer, who also has taken up a residency, and teaches classes on the paranormal at a local college. In the series, when it begins, there's more spiritual activity now, or all of a sudden there is. And because they don't have time to reassemble the team or talk those other folks into getting back together, Egon's forced to just rely on 4 kids from one of his classes, 4 students.
I see.
And make them new Ghostbusters. I don't know. It sounds kind of interesting to me.
Yeah.
The show wasn't terribly successful. The creators blame the schedule that they were put on, and also that there was a diminishing interest in the type of programming come 1997, in particular on local channels where you had now cable networks that were dedicated entirely to providing children's entertainment.
What's funny is that's almost exactly what I wish the Melissa McCarthy Ghostbusters was.
Right.
It's after a period of time, and now there's a new need, and so there's new Ghostbusters who are under the tutelage of a or some of the original Ghostbusters. I think that would have been splendid. Yeah. So they did it in Ghostbusters Dark Extreme.
What I thought was interesting is that while the creators blamed scheduling, the SFX Guide to Ghostbusters, which covers all things Ghostbusters, at least as of its publication, believes that the failure of the show demonstrates that, quote, the appeal of Ghostbusters was only partially the concept, in that it's the characters we love above all, end quote. And that, quote, this must be a sobering thought for anyone charged with rebooting Ghostbusters again, end quote. And that, this book came out, I don't know, a couple decades ago. Yeah. But it seems like, sort of like what you're talking about, John, what you've talked about in the past, where you need more of a connection to the prior before you in order to move forward. So you got some comments here.
Yeah.
Darth says the real Ghostbusters was the best. And Karen agrees. She says, I liked real Ghostbusters. Brandon says, hopefully it won't be a silly version of Ghostbusters. It could be stand a bit of a dark tone. I had read, again, I didn't watch Extreme Ghostbusters, but one of the ways it was described was that it played with pushing the horror that they thought that, children around their demo would be interested in or could withstand. Keith says it's going to be interesting to see where the animated series goes. We don't need real Ghostbusters the next generation.
Yeah, exactly.
We would be interested in, again, I guess that guide sums it up, and also just reiterating what John's said so many times. Paging all retro hounds. if you're searching for your next nostalgia fix, look no further than Retro Days on YouTube, home of the flagship series Celebrating Yesteryear, hosted every Saturday by our very own John Reddick. Presents a topic from the 70s, 80s, and 90s, imbued with John's Reddickness and a healthy dose of humor, dripping with nostalgia. the show's dripping with nostalgia, not John, or maybe both.
His air conditioning's fine now.
The AC was out.
Yeah, all right, there you go. Hey, come for topics like VCR board games and stay for experiences like the best 1980s sleepover ever. Head over to youtube.com/retrodays to catch up on past episodes, and don't forget to subscribe so you never miss the new episodes posted every Saturday. At Retro Days, they don't just remember the past, they celebrate it. Okay, and hey, finally, in 1980s news per Vox, just like the 14th century Black Death, breaking has gone viral in Paris.
And everywhere.
Yeah, it's spreading.
Yeah.
So I want to talk about not only what happened with this one particular dancer, but how we got here, because it's kind of, it's more, it was more intriguing, at least briefly to me. And it turns out maybe it's not as exciting as I thought it might be a story, but it highlights some interesting things in connection with the breaking community globally. Let's see. So I want to talk to you about Australia's the break dancer that Australia sent to the female, certainly female. I don't know. Did they have a male competitor? If you did, you wouldn't know. They were just buried by this one performer.
Yeah.
Not overshadowed. They did. Yeah. I'm curious now.
Overshadowed by B-Girl Raygun, born Rachel Gunn. But putting that aside for a moment, the fact that she didn't win any gold medals
or points.
It turns out that Paris was Australia's most successful games in the country's history, with 18 gold medals.
Yeah.
But it was this Raygun that I mentioned who finished far from the podium, but had the most viral moment. Not only did she not win a gold medal, she lost her 3-round robin breaking battles by shutouts, 18-0.
Right.
Her signature moves included the kangaroo paw. Did you see that one? She literally did this.
Do you know how they did the scoring? I was reading up on that.
No. No.
I can tell you that they were not, points were not handed out as they are in other sports, like in gymnastics. Oh, you get a point for hitting this and hitting this and hitting this. Right. It wasn't on any individual technical level. All the scoring for breaking was done as a comparison to the other person. So I just want to put that out there. It's not like she didn't earn any points. Right. It's that the judges were comparing and saying, yep, okay, the other person gets the points.
That's true. Right.
That's one thing to keep in mind.
Yeah. I'm going to talk about that a little bit later. Yeah, you're right. You're absolutely right. If you saw her perform, you noticed her signature moves include the kangaroo paw, which quickly became the subject of countless memes and a parody sketch on The Tonight Show starring Jimmy Fallon, in which he invited Rachel Dratch to play Raygun. And look, she does have fun with it, but her dancing is not all that different. It's very close. Anyway, this had this appearance, and you should check it out if you haven't seen it, had many questions. How did this 36-year-old academic get selected for the Olympic Games? And what I was suggesting earlier was that what made this story interesting to me was I came across some accounts that said that she unfairly took the spot away from someone else, that there was corruption involved. There was other chicanery where she and her husband were the committee that selected the person to go to the Olympics. And so she just chose herself. Now, as it turns out, all those things are false.
Thank you because I saw mention of those things as well, and I wasn't able to spend time fact checking today.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And it turns out she's an accomplished jazz dancer and I think ballroom dancer.
Yes, ballroom.
So she is a dancer, and she started breakdancing about, since 2010, so just, almost, 15 years ago, when her husband got her into the sport. But before we even had breakdancing in the Olympics, curiously enough, the World Dance Sport Federation, the WDSF, was devoted to getting ballroom dancing in the games. The association started in the late 1990s with a focus on winning a place for that activity before pivoting in 2017 towards breaking. And I'm gonna say a lot of names here that I'm definitely mispronouncing.
Okay.
I don't even know what country they're from or culture, so I have no clue as to maybe how I should be saying it.
Right.
And thinking it's Australia, this might be a New Zealander, like a native New Zealand name. Mm-hmm. Te Hiratonga Wapiha.
Okay.
Wapiha, a.k.a. Rush. I should probably just say Rush. One of the judges in the women's breaking final for the Oceania Championship that Gunn won to get to the Olympics posted a 90-minute live-streamed Instagram commentary in response to the controversy. He pointed out that the WDSF judging system, which was used in the Olympics and its breaking qualifiers, requires judges to be veterans in the breaking scene, both as competitors and as judges, and to pass multiple exams.
Wow.
I want that test. Wow. I want to know what it is.
Yeah.
Do they have a silhouette of a move and you have to identify it?
Oh, interesting. Yeah.
Is this popping or locking?
Windmill or headspin?
Can you tell?
Describe the pros and cons of a power move versus doing top rock. Is it called the centipede or the worm? Depends. That one depends, I think, where you live.
Yeah.
Anyway, so just to point out the legitimacy of the folks involved in this process. So no shenanigans, at least on those different levels. It turns out, though, in addition to being a dancer, Gunn's day job is as a lecturer with research interests including the cultural politics of breaking. No joke. She is a professor that lectures about the politics of breaking, and she's caught up in the most political sort of, hullabaloo or certainly controversy with regard to breaking that. I don't ever, probably, right? I mean,
right.
not since you realized you could see the strings. They were holding up Michael Boogaloo Shrimp's broom in breaking. Has there been such a controversy? Anyway, in addition to, before she made it to the Olympics, she represented Australia at the World Championships in Paris in 2021 and in Seoul in 2022. She didn't win those competitions either, but she did, obviously rank among the many competitors there. Prior to her Olympics appearance, she also, I just said that already. She also judged Red Bull's preeminent BC1 breaking contest. And she's been established as a local champ. So she does have some bona fides prior to doing the kangaroo paw. Yet following her appearance at the Olympics, a petition circulated claiming without sources that she and her husband, breaking coach Samuel Free, had manipulated the entire WDSF system in order to gain a spot at the Olympics. This petition falsely claimed that, as I mentioned, Gunn had judged herself at the qualifier, despite the judges' list for the event being readily available online. So, surprise, right? That the internet's running amok with bullshit.
Yeah, conspiracy.
Anyway, that said, the subtext of the criticism that Gunn benefited from her whiteness has some merit, in particular because she attended an elite high school and she has the opportunity to get a PhD in an obscure field. I mean, my parents discouraged me from becoming a writer or musician.
Right.
Can you imagine in the 1980s, I said, I'm going to be I'm going to get a doctorate and I'm going to lecture about breakdancing? First, they'd probably say, look, you should start calling it breaking, because if you call it breakdancing, you're going to lose all credibility in the field.
Your parents would have said that?
Yeah, of course. Everybody knows that. But she also, more importantly, had enough funds, the money to be able to travel to these various competitions, which I think is the biggest, sort of benefit she had. Now, whether that comes from being white or, other things, but certainly statistically speaking, we're going to learn here that she did have the ability to do these things, attend these competitions that other folks that have been in the culture, as long or longer couldn't afford.
So is coursework like that universal? It smacks to me of when I was in college. I remember I took a course, the sociology of Star Trek, just because it had Star Trek in the name and I needed credit hours. But that wasn't like, that's not like a course that's taught all over the planet. There happened to be a professor at my college who was a super fan and decided to do this kind of course, they were teaching sociological concepts and stuff, but through this.
They find a way. They find a way.
Yeah, right. But it's like the study of breaking and that kind of coursework, is that something that only she has at her college because she made it up? Or is that like, I'm not aware of that being,
right.
It's not like social studies or, Greek mythology. It's not like that's everywhere, right? It's just there.
Yeah. What department does it even fall under? Yeah. To your point. Yeah.
Maybe anthropology. I mean, when you do a PhD, you can get pretty specific and pretty esoteric. It doesn't, a PhD doesn't necessarily need to have any grounding in established departments.
Or usefulness in the real world.
Or usefulness.
Right.
That's right.
Yes. Marcus says she definitely did not benefit from her whiteness. I think her whiteness may have been the issue.
Yeah.
At some point, I have questions about her performance.
Okay.
That I want to ask someone who knows much more about breaking than I do.
Oh, okay.
That could be whenever. So
could be the guy up there.
Yeah.
I know who I'm talking to.
And it may not be me, because it turns out that, because I'm among the folks who, when I first saw these clips, I was like, oh no. I felt terrible for her in a sense, only because I hadn't seen anybody else compete yet, but I have seen the level of people that compete at BC1. And I thought, oh no, this poor woman, she thinks this is breaking where she's from. She's going to get destroyed.
Right.
And I've been in battles as a kid where you do your little thing, and then you see the other guy go, and you're like, I am not in the right place. And you just try to back away slowly. Outmatched.
But you did not know that going in.
No.
Right?
Yeah, no.
You did not know it. And
right.
but she must have.
Yes.
Right?
She did. Yes, she did.
She must have.
But I was joining the folks that were like kind of poo-pooing this whole thing, but I felt bad for her at first. And then I thought maybe she's having a go, as they might say overseas. But while I was doing that, the actual breaking community was rallying behind her. Dujan Cullingford, I'm going to say, a veteran New Zealand breaker who attended the Oceania qualifiers, wrote a Facebook post arguing against the idea that she benefited from any factor besides a small talent pool. He emphasized that the community there is tiny. He placed the Australian breakers at around 400 total. And Rush, who I talked about earlier, claimed that the WDSF had to, quote, get people out of retirement in order to make up the numbers. Competitors, end quote. Yeah. And also they responded to the idea that some folks were banding about that maybe they weren't advertising or promoting the competition to, quote, real breakers. But they rejected that idea. They said that there were some folks in the community that just chose not to compete because they didn't want to go to the Olympics.
Okay.
Or they didn't have the cash to be able to come to the competition, like we mentioned.
Yeah.
Or they weren't interested in competing because they felt like it's not part of the culture.
Sure.
Having to, do a command appearance, in front of judges who are going to technically score you. I mean, that's who wins a contest or not is, more vibe and feel than, that.
Yeah.
Although BC won, which seems to be a very well-respected competition for, decades now, they have some sort of judging system. I guess I don't know how those folks feel about that. Mm-hmm. So all of this means is that despite this viral narrative, the different things that have been suggested about her, it isn't as simple as writing her interest in the Olympics off as a fluke or, hilarious or privileged corruption.
No.
And according to Gunn, she intended to bring a style of movement to the Paris Games that was less about meeting expectations and more about making an indelible impact. She said, quote, I was never going to beat these girls on what they do best, the dynamic and the power moves. So I wanted to move differently, be artistic and creative, because how many chances do you get in a lifetime to do that, end quote. So yeah, Kat, it seems like she knew what she was getting into. Mm-hmm. And so she said, fuck it. I'm going to do what I do. I'm going to be me.
And I give her props for that.
Yes.
She ended up there and she did her thing and she was earnest about it.
Yep.
And it really bugs me that people were so negative about that because nobody deserves that, right? Yes, she was outmatched. We can say that. Like she didn't, compared to her competitors, they earned the points. But is that a reason to trash her? I don't think so.
No, you know what? The only time I felt like trashing her was when I thought, I think she's making fun of us.
Really?
Or fun of the sport, rather. You know, I thought
So you felt that initially, is that right? And like you first saw her performance? Okay.
Yeah, I saw like a 15-second clip of her doing the kangaroo, dropping to the floor and running around in a circle or something like that.
Yeah.
And I thought, she's in this, wherever she's from, and it was Australia, obviously. She's Australia. They don't have a community. They sent this woman and she's making a goof out of it.
Wow.
That's what I thought. I thought, this is terrible.
Got
So
it.
I did feel sort of upset with that, but turns out that's not true, obviously.
Yeah.
And as Kat pointed out, by Olympic standards, she didn't do that badly, because if you look at the scoring, for example, with her against the U.S. breaker Logistics, you could see that while she nabbed 0 rounds, a handful of judges had her beating Logistics in some subcategories, usually originality, which, let's face it, hands down.
Yeah, original.
Yes.
She's being original.
Absolutely
Meanwhile,
original.
While Logistics won most categories, she typically only won by a few percentage points at best, which I think is the most surprising thing to me about it. As Vox says, was it great? No. Was it bad? Evidently not as bad as we thought.
No, it wasn't. It
But
just
bad
wasn't.
is in the eye of the beholder. It's what do you perceive as good or bad?
Yeah.
Right?
Yes.
And I would,
Yes.
and I would never knock anybody for doing something that they believe that was doing their best. So in that sense, knowing what I know now, more power to you. Now, folks, that another, just to settle another, claim that's not true. The reason breaking is not in the Olympics in LA in 4 years is not because of her performance. It already was not.
That was already decided.
Yes,
Yeah.
that was already decided. And in
Yes.
fact, the organization that was, fighting to get breaking in the Olympics, they were shooting for the LA Olympics and they were told no. So then they pivoted to, well, then at least let's get it in for Paris. And they did. Again, that's, I have a problem with that since, popping and locking,
Right.
Boogaloo, that dance style is from LA.
Yeah.
Whereas the power moves, all that stuff is more East Coast. Anyway, there you go.
Yeah.
John, you had thoughts about?
Yeah. So here's my question for someone who knows way more. First of all, Raygun did a much better job than I would have done had I been sent to the Olympics.
Same.
So I'll give her that credit.
Same.
I don't know, Kat. I've seen your moves, so I wouldn't guarantee that. But so look, I'm admittedly ignorant to the styles that are traditionally, but when I think of breaking, and maybe that's antiquated thinking, I think of a couple of two really distinct styles. One of them being very fluid, almost like this boneless, elastic kind of movement.
Sure.
And the other being very robotic, very the pop and lock, kind of like your joints are independently moving one at a time kind of thing. And what I saw of her performance did not register to me as any kind of breakdancing that I could imagine. It was very herky-jerky. It was very kind of spastic. It was very kind of like seizure-esque. Like nothing in it did I see. And nowhere in her performance did I go, oh, I recognize that as breaking.
Okay.
Yeah. But she did say it's very original. It's all about originality, I guess. But I mean, in other things, in theater, originality is important. But if you opt to do something that no one recognizes as theater, maybe it doesn't count. Yeah. So what was your take on that? Is she doing things that you have seen in the evolution of breaking? Or was that truly a landmark crazy divergence from what you would expect to see?
I suppose my opinion would be, yes, I've seen her do, and some of it, to be honest with you, I've seen her, I've watched some of her other performances. So outside the Olympics. And so I'm not sure which ones I may be remembering from one or the other, but she definitely has some moves that are, especially when she's up on her feet, like the Apache, some opening moves that you do up on your feet. She seems to have those and understand that. With regard to the other ones, it seems like most of the things I saw, she has an element of something that's almost familiar, but then seems like a novice person, as far as the execution. So it's like, oh, I think she's going to do a windmill or freeze that or head spin, but
it devolves into that unrecognizable thing.
Yes.
But she meant to do that, but it looks to me, like you said, it looks to me like, oh, she couldn't quite do that, so she flopped around some.
Yeah. Now it seems like, look, I don't know whether I don't know whether she could actually do those moves or not, but it seems like, at least like we're learned, right? She did what she wanted to do, exactly how she wanted to do it. But
that's what you want to do.
It's vaguely breaking, but again, I would describe it in a way that you someone who just did a few classes and then was like, let me out there. I think this is what they showed me.
She had a few moves that I thought, oh, because I think I had a similar, I didn't quite think of it exactly the same way, John, but yes, a few moments of that looks familiar or that looks expected. Yeah, just a little bit though. And there was in one of her battles, the announcers on the video I was watching, they were mostly quiet during hers, and they were saying a lot more ooh, ah, about whoever she was against, right? But she did have one moment where one of the announcer was ooh, nice down, whatever, I forget what they called it, but her way of getting down to the ground had a little little excitement to it, and that was about it.
I see Brandon saying in the comments that he didn't see it, but it sounds like perhaps it was more like interpretive dance.
Brandon,
that's kind of my point, which is like if you're supposed to be breakdancing and you're doing tap, I mean, it's at what point is it not breakdancing? Yeah. That was kind of my whole vibe with her performance. I didn't feel that she was putting us on or whatever. I didn't have that feeling. No. It was kind of half what Will said, like, is she really good enough to be here? And the other half is like, does she know what breakdancing is really? That's how I felt, because I didn't see what I associated with traditional breakdancing.
I think that's legit.
That's a good point. And Brandon and John, I mean, I have a background in modern dance. And yes, there were plenty of moments where I was like, okay, she has musicality and she has creativity. And a lot of this is reminding me of an improv of just doing whatever, not specifically breaking.
Just not a breaking.
And I know that's what I know she was going for breaking, but it didn't come across that way.
He didn't stick the landing, as they say at the Olympics.
I realize when you guys are talking what it reminds me of. It reminds me of, and this probably hasn't happened since the 80s or 90s, when I would be at a wedding and some drunk family member would be like, look, I could break dance too. And they would start doing crazy shit, in the middle of the floor. And I'd be like, go, go, go. Someone needs to cut him off. Go, go.
And I'm laughing because I agree, but at the same time, I don't want to put her down. I feel like, okay, it wasn't exactly like that. That's not what
I thought Kat was going to say, I'm laughing, but at the same time, I was the drunk one at the wedding. That's where I thought she was going.
Oh, here's something interesting.
Although
I'm not quite sure where she's at now with this. I do know I saw a clip where someone's trying to interview her and she didn't want to talk about it, which I get. That's totally fine. All the negative backlash, like all the negativity. And she's apparently been offered, I don't know if she's taken advantage of
classes.
Mental health counseling, in the context of all of the trolls and the negativity. And actually, my husband today was saying, I feel really bad for her. And I could identify with that. He said, but I also feel like this was an opportunity for her to lean into it. And if she could somehow go with the funny, because it is funny. I can't deny, like the juxtaposition, right? Juxtaposition is a huge is a huge part of humor. And so watching, the other ones, and her is like, oh, okay, no contest, right? Kind of funny. But it maybe if she, instead of saying, no, I don't want to talk to reporters, had started hopping around, like it would have taken the power away from the naysayers, like maybe it would have become something else. I don't know. Just
now she's uniquely qualified if they spin up like the viral Olympics, right? And they can get like Star Wars Kid and Chocolate Rain and Charlie Bit My Finger and Hawk to a Girl and Raygun, and just put them all together and compete.
Oh my God.
TikTok Olympics, yeah.
Yes.
Look, quite honestly, at my best challenging her in the 1980s, I don't know that I could beat her, so who am I to judge?
She would have beat me at any wedding.
Drunk or no.
That's right.
Yeah, exactly.
All right. Hey, that was the show.
Oh, this is where I get to imitate Will, imitating me.
Okay. I'd love to hear that, yeah.
Our show is brought to you thanks in part to our early adopters. Mm-hmm. Yes.
Right.
Yes. Yeah. Like, yes.
And see if you could say the names and you'll agree with yourself about the names. All right, go ahead.
I need to tell myself to be quiet. Yes.
Karen Flieger and Rick Parker.
Yes.
Kat, you didn't do the part where you go, oh, hold on, I have to find that page. That's also part of the Will impression.
Yeah.
Oh, I guess I missed that part.
Right.
And thank you especially to our early, oh no, sorry, I already said that. Thank you especially to our Secret of Our Success level Patreon supporters.
Yes.
Marcus Taylor, Tony Gray, Nick Guillory, Matt Marino, John Henderson, Brandon Greer, and Steve McLeod. I have to talk over myself. This is so disconcerting.
Why do you keep interrupting yourself,
Yeah,
Kat? It's like, stop hitting yourself. Stop hitting yourself. Stop interrupting yourself.
Thank you so very much, guys, for helping support the show. We appreciate your generous support every week, or every month, rather, that allows us to produce a show every week. We'd be just shouting out clouds without you. Hey, and as a reminder, hey, special thanks to Tony Great and the folks over at Retro Days for not only sponsoring Retro Cons, which RetroCon 2024. Go to retrocons.com for more information. But for sending 1980s now there as well. And just a reminder, we'll be there September 7th and 8th. We're doing a panel on September 7th in the morning at 11 a.m. So get your ass there early.
That's right. Tony is the architect of our get-together.
Yes.
Before then, because we're going to see you there, we will talk to you next time on 1980s Now.
Until next time.
Pop and knock.